You may have come across this hidden gem, a cross between Wilmot's Warehouse and The Mind called Out of Sorts. This game is all sorts of great at your next game night, but there's a few tricks I've picked up to help you get into the table even faster. So, let's learn how to teach Out of Sorts. Big thanks to Always Awake Games for sponsoring this one. If you're like me and have the world's worst memory, there's the teacher's guide. Yeah, that thing. It'll help you out. It's got everything you need to teach the game, and it's available for free. We should probably talk about the rules to this one first. I don't normally go through the rules of a game during an episode because this isn't a show about how to play games, so typically you should already know how to play a game before watching one of my videos. However, given that this is a smaller indie game, I will give you the benefit of the doubt and go through the rules real quick so we're all on the same page. To get you up to speed, you've been abducted by aliens. Yikes! Now they want you to sort their library. Unfortunately, you don't speak the language, so you'll need to come up with your own interpretation so you can remember where everything is. This game takes place under a 20-minute timer. Those 20 minutes will be broken down into rounds, with each round adding more and more of the aliens' books to sort. One player is the sorter, and they're the one that keeps track of the official order in which you've put all the books that you've found. The rest of the players are the finder, and it's their job to take the index cards given to you by the alien librarian that have the book titles written down on them. They'll take those and find the corresponding book in their hands. If you don't have what's on the index card, I would be shocked if that was right, you're gonna have to describe it to the other players and they'll have to show you their best guesses for what they think you need one at a time. Each round you'll sort 5 books, during which the sorter will help the table come to a consensus about how best to organize them. As you progress, the books you sort each round will be sorted into books from the previous round. You'll be given 3 category cards as your baseline system to help you come up with a way to sort out these alien books, and it's up to your group to use those to your advantage. Once all the books are found and a sorting method is decided, it's time to put y'all's organization system to the test. Take the index cards of the found books and shuffle them and deal out a number of them based on whatever round it is to see if your system works. If the finders can sort them correctly, that's a success, and you may have to repeat that process to move on to the next round, successfully sorting a new random selection of books. Upon starting the next round, you get to dish out 5 new index cards for the finders to find and the sorter to sort once they find them, progressively increasing the number of weird alien symbols everyone's going to need to keep track of. Incorrectly sort the books and the librarian watching over you will steadily become increasingly annoyed, eventually bidding you a cursive goodbye and asking you politely yet firmly to walk straight into the airlock. After 20 minutes, you'll tally your score up based on any gameplay modifiers you used, the difficulty of the categories, as well as the round you made it to, and the lives you had remaining. That, in general, is how to play. Rodney makes that look so much easier. But what good is it knowing how to play the game if you can't get anyone to play it with you? So let's learn how to sell some friends on giving this one a try. Some of the best experiences I've ever had at the board game table are from games I mentioned in the intro. I brought up Wilmot's Warehouse, which lets you collaboratively interpret what ostensibly are Rorschach tests with your friends, coming up with all sorts of hilarious interpretations and in-jokes to successfully remember where random shapes are stored in an empty warehouse. I also mentioned The Mind, which is one of those rare games I use to show how weird and engaging modern board games have become to newcomers, showing off how even the simplest of concepts can result in engaging gameplay. Out of Sorts does both what Wilmot's Warehouse and The Mind do at the same time, and if your friends liked those games, they might even wind up thinking Out of Sorts does it better. And to top it all off, it's giving Oink Games a run for their money in the box volume alone. Out of Sorts made its debut at the Indie Games Night Market at PAX Unplugged 2024, where it sold out almost immediately. It's now available directly through the designer's website, and I'd like to think that that gives it this cool, elusive underground quality that I personally love in my indie games. I am always down to play someone's obscure title just for the rarity of it alone, and I know I'm not the only hobbyist who feels that way. Definitely bring up the origin of Out of Sorts when pitching it to your fellow Calyx warriors. The gameplay of Out of Sorts is such a treat, and it's one of its best selling points. In this game, you're sorting an alien's book collection using weird alien symbols, and so as a team, you're going to be coming up with hilarious off-the-cuff ways to remember where everything goes, and that makes it part improv, part memory game, and it feels amazing when you succeed, and it's ridiculous when you don't. As with most score-based cooperative games, if your group is more about the competitive side of board games, you can always just split into 2 or more groups and easily play it in a mini tournament style mode, comparing scores to see which of you are the best alien librarians. And last but not least, it's got a 20-minute guaranteed playtime, which when compared to your 3-hour Euro games, Out of Sorts starts to sound exponentially appealing as the time approaches 11 o'clock at your next game night. Speaking of your next game night, here's a 30-second pitch you can use to sell anyone on giving Out of Sorts a try. Dang it, we've been abducted by aliens. Now they're putting us to work in their library. In this game, we need to come up with our own system for organizing the books that we find. Now, I won't speak on your behalf, but I personally don't speak a second language, let alone whatever this is, so we're gonna have to do our best with the symbols on the fronts of the books and make it up as we go. We've got 20 minutes to find as many books as we can and get them in an order we can remember to impress these aliens, or they might just escort us out, which is a problem since we're in space and I don't want to speak on your behalf, but I need oxygen to live. Sort it out or we'll be out of sorts. This game has a pretty simple setup if everyone knows how to play already, but let's talk about how to set this up if someone is playing for the first time. Right off the bat, as the teacher, you'll be playing as the sorter, which puts you in the best position to keep things moving, and you'll only really have to explain like half of what's going on in detail. The first thing you'll want to do is go through both decks and find 3 to 4 pairs of matching index and book cards depending on the player count. For the categories, we will be using the recommended categories of cats, reptiles, and monsters. However, for the introduction to your teach, you can pick any other 3 categories, but for convenience, I recommend using the opposite side of the 3 categories we'll actually use in the first game, so math, geology, and cosmos. Once we've got our game set up, it's time to start our teach off right by setting the big 3, setting the stage, the goal, and the expectations. This game has such a fun little theme to it, and as such, you absolutely want to lean into it when setting the stage. Make sure you include the story of being recruited by the aliens to sort their books, and make sure you put on either some high energy music, or if you really want to lean into the library theme, work in pure silence. Nah, I always play music, that's way more fun. For setting the goal, you'll want to ensure that everyone knows what the task at hand is, and to do that, we'll be using our example cards in a little bit, but for now, just make sure everyone knows that this is a cooperative game, and that you're working to sort as many books as possible using methods of organization that you come up with. Sort more books, make fewer mistakes, and you'll increase the number of points you get. The higher the score, the more likely you are to be kept around by the less than amicable aliens. And for setting the expectations, you'll want the table to know that this is a surprisingly hard game. It's unlikely that you'll get an amazing score your first time through, but remember, this game's only 20 minutes long, and it'll be really easy to try again. You can mention that a good score is around 10 to 15 points for those who want to know, but for your first game, you pretty likely won't hit that threshold. But I believe in you. Remember, it's called the Dewey Decimal System, not the Don't-y Decimal System. Once we've set our big 3, it's time to dive right into the teach. I personally hate practice rounds in most games. However, in any real-time game, you have to do at least one just to make sure everyone knows what's going on before you get started. Nothing's worse than having to pause a timer every 5 seconds to re-explain a rule. In Out of Sorts, we're not going to do a full practice round, but we'll do a bit more of a dry run, so to speak. Start by getting your categories after you finish setting your big 3, then take those cards that we set aside during the setup and deal out the book cards to the players and set the index cards in the middle of the table. Everyone should already know the situation at hand, so you can just dive right into the mechanics. Here's how I go about explaining the game at this point. Alright, in your hands are the books in the library, and in the middle are the index cards the aliens currently want us to find and sort for them. For every book, there's a matching index card. During each round, our goal is to first find all the books that match these index cards, and then, as we find them, sort them into a system we can all remember using these categories as our baseline. Since this is a real-time game, there aren't any turns, so when we're in this part of the game, you'll draw an index card if you don't currently have one in your hand, and there's still one to draw from the center pile. As everyone draws their index cards, you'll first address anyone who lucked into a match. One at a time, the sorters can put down their matching cards into the center of the table, where everyone will need to decide on what the heck we're even looking at here. To keep the ball rolling at this point, I recommend taking the initiative to start the discussion on what the card could be described as and what category it should be put under. Don't let anyone in the table run away with the discussion here, since in a moment we'll be doing this in real time, so don't be afraid to cut someone off and just make the executive decision to sort the card in any particular way. Again, we're in the dry run practice round thing. It's not that serious. Yet. Once you've gotten all the immediate matches out of the way, if any, you'll then explain how, if you don't have the book card in your hand, you'll need to describe the card out loud to the other finders who, if they think they have a match, they can show one book at a time to whoever's describing that index card. I imagine it as everyone being in separate aisles of the library, and the books are like really big, so you can only bring one with you at a time to see if it matches the index card being yelled out from across the room. As the table finds and sorts these books out, make sure that everyone at the table sees you putting these books into your hand in the order that the table agreed on, and that they see you put the index cards in a stack on the side. Once you've gotten through that mini stack of index cards, you can move on to the next part of the round, which is to make sure that the system you developed actually works. At this point, I bring over the round cards and show how these indicate how many cards you have to sort as a group and how many times you'll have to successfully sort them to move on to the next round. Once you've explained that, you'll take all the index cards from this little round thing we're doing, give them a quick shuffle, and then plunk them down face up in the middle of the table. I intentionally don't deal these out in a line so you can't even accidentally sort them for the table initially, just sort of spatter them out at random. While they're sorting, you'll mention since that you can see the correct order because you have the books in your hand, you're not allowed to speak for this part of the round. In theory, everyone should be able to sort upwards of 4 cards. When they do that, you'll verify that they did so correctly by revealing your hand of books showing the table the matching correct order. Normally you don't do this. I only recommend doing this at the end of the game, or in this case, just for the end of the practice run dry round thing. Normally the books stay hidden in the sorter's hand for the whole game as if they're on a shelf. And I'd like to think that even though they can rip out the spine of a human, the aliens haven't quite figured out that they should put the words on the spine of the book. Now that the practice dry round run is done, it's time to actually get started with the rest of the game. Take the cards that were used in the practice round and just sort of stick them on the bottom of their decks so you don't have to shuffle again. Then deal out all the book cards among the finders. One of the reasons I had you stick to just a few books instead of dealing out all the book cards like you do for the full game is because one of the best parts of this game is that oh no moment you have when you are handed a massive stack of alien cards with all these alien symbols on them. By giving everyone just a few books at the start, you're setting them up for the punchline that is this chaos that is about to follow. It's easily one of the most engaging parts of the experience, and it can really make players feel like they're thrown into the deep end in the best way possible. Once everyone's good to go, it's time to get a timer started and get to work. At this point, you're basically good to play the game as you would normally, but I'll point out a few tricks to help keep things moving smoothly as you go. One of the things to do as the sorter and finders are looking for books is to keep your stack of index cards shuffled. As you put books into this stack, you'll want to alternate putting the index cards on the top and then on the bottom if you can, or just keep the pile like really messy. This will keep the game moving as you get to the systems check part since you won't have to shuffle as much. Since this game does have a little bit of an improvisational feel, it can be really easy for players to get stuck in the moment and freeze up when trying to come up with what one of these symbols could even be. Fortunately, the recommended starting categories are really good at making that process effortless. So if no one seems to be able to come up with anything, just use whatever thought pops into your mind first and get it sorted quickly so that the game moves on quicker. Don't forget, clock's ticking. Also, this is more of like a strategy tip than anything, but listen to how the finders are describing things to each other when they don't have the matching book in their hand, and use that to leverage what category and placement to sort things under. If someone says, find me the one that looks like the cat paw, it's probably best just to immediately suggest to put it under the cat's category when the match comes out. If you play your cards right, hopefully you'll get a score that you and our new alien overlords can be happy with. This is one of those games where you'll immediately jump in and play it again, and I highly recommend randomizing the categories for your second game. Other than that though, once you've made it through your first game, everyone is now primed and ready for another hectic 20-minute sorting session, and you can pat yourself on the back for a game well taught. Odds are pretty good that this was your first time hearing about this game, or you're only now learning more about it. Let me just say, this game was made with so much love, and I had a really good time playing it. I know this isn't a review show or anything, but because this is from a smaller designer and it's entirely self-published, I want more people to know about this game and get it on their shelf. Always Awake Games contractually can't make me say anything I don't want to, so believe me when I say my gaming group loved this one and had an amazing time. It was the only game everyone was talking about the day after our get-together. If you missed it at the Indie Game Night Market, or if after watching this you feel like giving it a try yourself, I've linked down below where you can buy yourself a copy. Come here. It literally costs less than some Oink games, and I'd be so bold as to say it's more fun and easier to teach than half of them. Which I feel like is a really good praise because a lot of Oink games are really good, I'm just saying. What's that I hear? It's nothing, the animation is silent, but it's the teacher's guide! Much to the algorithm's chagrin, it's got the entire episode summed up so you don't have to watch this whole video again when you go to play the game. Print out the teacher's guide, fold it up, and keep it in the... or just save it to your phone and be ready to get out of sorts whenever. These are designed to have your back when you're teaching the game, and honestly, I even use them when I teach games that I've covered on the show now. They're great. It's available for free to the public on my Patreon page, linked down below. Speaking of, thank you to the lovely patrons for supporting the show. Y'all are amazing. I can't thank you enough for the love you pour out for How to Teach. Y'all are awesome. And thanks for watching. Now, go and judge some books by their cover. Alien librarians, alien librarians, alien librarians, alien librarians, alien librarians, alien librarians. Whew. I'm good at that.